I take everything like that with a pinch of salt, really, because you can't say who's best.
The hidden rift behind the genius. For decades, Brian May was celebrated as the quiet genius behind Queen, the astrophysicist turned guitarist who built the legendary Red Special, composed anthems that defined generations, and helped preserve Freddie Mercury's legacy after the singer's passing. But what if the symphony on stage masked a discord that brewed behind the curtain? What if the real tension wasn't with Mercury at all, but with the last person fans ever expected? Tonight, we uncover the long-buried story of a feud between two brilliant minds, Brian May and John Deacon. A silent rivalry that nearly destroyed Queen from the inside, and may explain why they never reunited again. From equations to amplifiers. Born in 1947 in the quiet suburb of Hampton, Middlesex, Brian May was never meant to be a rock star, at least not according to the plan. A child of precision and curiosity, Brian showed early brilliance in physics and mathematics, eventually earning a Bachelor of Science in Physics from the prestigious Imperial College London. But music tugged at him hard. He had perfect pitch, a melodic instinct, and a mind that merged science with emotion. When his father couldn't afford a professional guitar, they built one together. Using fireplace wood, old motorcycle parts, and sewing box buttons, the Red Special was born. That guitar wouldn't just define Brian's sound, it would change rock history. But with each note he mastered, a quiet tension brewed between reason and rebellion, a duality that would soon shape his every conflict in Queen. The birth of Queen and the first signs. In the late 60s, while still pursuing his PhD, Brian formed a band called Smile with drummer Roger Taylor. But everything changed when a flamboyant art student named Farrokh Bulsara entered their world. The man we now know as Freddie Mercury didn't just join the band, he renamed it Queen. Along came bassist John Deacon in 1971, soft-spoken, methodical, and as technically brilliant as May, but in an entirely different way. Where Brian crafted soundscapes, Deacon preferred tight, minimal rhythms. And while Mercury's presence dazzled the spotlight, May and Deacon quietly laid down the creative foundation, often at odds. From day one, their approaches clashed, and the seeds of future friction were quietly sown. And once Queen exploded into global fame, those creative differences would only grow louder. Bohemian Rhapsody, the masterpiece and the meltdown. 1975 brought the thunder. A Night at the Opera cemented Queen's place in rock history, and Bohemian Rhapsody became the crown jewel, a 6-minute epic of layered vocals, operatic transitions, and May's intricate guitar work. But behind the scenes, that song nearly broke them. May, the perfectionist, spent weeks sculpting each note. Deacon, however, questioned whether the elaborate section strayed too far from rock's essence. They clashed, not just in sound, but in philosophy. May saw music like physics, precise, layered, expansive. Deacon believed simplicity was power. In the studio, Mercury played referee, but tension was beginning to calcify. And though Bohemian Rhapsody changed music forever, it also marked the moment their creative philosophies collided beyond repair. 1977, when the storm hit. By the time Queen recorded News of the World, the cracks had widened. One infamous session saw Deacon label May's solo on Spread Your Wings as overly complex. May, furious, stormed out of the studio. Producer Mike Stone was forced to mediate while Mercury and Taylor quietly left the room, unwilling to take sides. That wasn't a one-off fight, it was a boiling point. Deacon wanted cleaner, radio-ready songs. May yearned for symphonic grandeur. As their fame climbed, so did their stubbornness. May's emotional temperament met Deacon's quiet defiance like flint and steel. And by this point, the sparks were undeniable. But then came the track that would truly set the fuse ablaze. Another One Bites the Trust. Deacon wrote Another One Bites the Dust, a funky, disco-infused anthem that May outright despised. He called it disco trash and tried to block its release. But Mercury backed Deacon, pushing it forward as Queen's next single. The result? a global smash hit that sold over 7 million copies and topped charts worldwide. For May, it wasn't just a blow to his musical ego, it was proof that he was losing creative ground. Deacon's instincts had won. And for a man who'd always led with composition and control, that stung. Their silent war was no longer just creative, it had become personal. And while the world danced to Deacon's bass line, May withdrew further into isolation. The Ice Age of Queen. As Queen entered the 1980s, their unity unraveled. Interviews showed May pausing uncomfortably when asked about Deacon. During the Hot Space sessions in 1982, they recorded on different days just to avoid each other. One of the biggest battles came over back chat, a Deacon-penned funk track. May pushed for a heavier guitar sound. Deacon refused. The fight escalated until May threatened to quit again. Mercury, exhausted, brokered a fragile truce. Meanwhile, May's personal life was crumbling. His marriage was falling apart and the pressure of fame pushed him into depression. Deacon, ever withdrawn, buried himself in family life and studio work. The studio wasn't just a workspace anymore, it was a battleground. But no one expected the next clash would bring Freddie Mercury to tears. The fight that broke Freddie. The Miracle Sessions. Mercury was growing weaker, though the world didn't yet know. During recording of I Want It All, May grew frustrated with Deacon's deliberately offbeat playing. When confronted, Deacon snapped, "Not everything has to be about your guitar." The room fell silent except for Mercury, who broke down crying. Watching his bandmates fall apart while he faced his own mortality was too much. That moment, producers say, shattered something in all of them. And for May, the silence after that confrontation spoke louder than any applause. Yet even as the end neared, one final explosion would seal the rift forever. The last note together. After Mercury's death in 1991, Queen stood on a precipice. At the tribute concert in 1992, May and Taylor led the charge. Deacon stood quietly at the back. When May reached out to heal old wounds, Deacon's reply was icy. "Without Freddie, there is no Queen." In 1997, they reunited briefly to record No One But You. When May suggested changes to Deacon's bass line, Deacon slammed his instrument down, said, "This is the last time you tell me what to play," and walked out. He never returned. No public farewell, no press tour, no grand exit, just silence. The band was over for him, and perhaps so was any friendship. The last word between them was never spoken. Reflection and regret. Today, Brian May continues to tour, teach, and inspire. Knighted in 2023, astrophysicist, rock star, legend. And yet when he's asked about Deacon, there's a pause, a flicker. "I wish things had been different," he once said. Deacon, now 74, lives quietly in southwest London. He avoids the spotlight, rarely listens to music, and never speaks about Queen. Some say he's at peace. Others say he's still hurting. In May's home studio sits a photo, the original Queen lineup. 4 young men frozen in time, before the rifts, before the silence. And maybe that photo says what words no longer can. Behind Queen's thunderous anthems and stadium-shaking choruses was a story of genius, conflict, and quiet heartbreak. Brian May and John Deacon were two sides of the same coin, science and soul, fire and ice. Together, they helped build one of the greatest legacies in music history. But that same brilliance came at a cost. The silence between them remains one of rock's great mysteries. Was it creative tension that gave Queen its magic? Or was it unspoken pain that kept them apart? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more untold stories of music's most legendary figures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell.